Good morning, everybody. When what the prophet Malachi in our first reading today says is coming, when it comes, this day of the Lord, will it come as a welcomed guest or a massive interruption? A welcomed guest or a massive interruption in your life? When I was growing up, I shared a room with my brother Luke, and right next door was a bedroom, always with a couple of sisters in it. And every morning, right around 6:30, I'd hear it. Cock-a-doodle-doo! Rooster call. But my family, we didn't grow up on a farm. Instead, it was my dad, who over many years of mornings practicing it, had perfected, or so he liked to think, his rooster call that was loud and effective and very annoying. But every morning when I heard it, I knew a new day had come. It was time to get up. And most of the time, it was a complete and massive interruption. But every now and then, if I was particularly looking forward to the day, something that was going to happen, if I had anticipated that wake-up call, and I was already awake and ready to go, that rooster call, it was a welcomed guest. The call was the same, but how I received it was different. When the day of the Lord comes, will it come as a welcomed guest or as a massive interruption? Malachi, the very last prophet to speak in the Old Testament, brings us home on this very last Sunday in ordinary time. And as he does, he speaks of this coming day of the Lord. And what is that? It is that time when we will see the Lord face to face. And many of us might think, oh, that's just a day in the far distant future at the end of time. And perhaps. But each and every one of us will have a day where our lives end as we know it. And the question for us is that day coming as a welcome guest or a massive interruption? Malachi, as he speaks about this day, gives us an image that is not subtle at all. This day for some is very good. It will come with a rising sun with gentle healing rays, kind of like today. But then for others, it'll be like a destructive fire. Does God come with kind, merciful love for some and hard vengeance for others? Is God loving for some and harsh for others? What makes for the difference for those who welcome this day of the Lord as a guest and the others who it's obviously a massive interruption? Well, we know this: God is love. God is love, which means love is not something that God does. He isn't just loving. Love for God is not an on-off switch sort of thing. Right now, as you sit here, God is trying to use all of his power, all of his love, all of his intelligence for your greatest good. God does not choose to love some and hate others. But a love that is not received, a love that is not welcomed, a love that is rejected, always feels like an imposition. If you recall your days as a teenager, or if you have teenagers now, there were plenty of days growing up when my mom would say, hey, no, Andrew, you can't do that. And I think, God, Mom, why do you hate me? Why are you against me? And it's silliness to ever think that. But what was happening? I wasn't able to receive the love as my mom was trying to give it to me. Friends, on the day of the Lord, when God comes, some will not get a nice God and others get a mean God. We will get God. And what makes the difference between an interruption and a guest is our capacity, our willingness to receive that love of God. Do we want it or not? So how do I know where I stand? How do I know what the day of the Lord will be like for me? I think all we have to do is answer one question. What is it that you worship? What is it that you worship? What is of the highest value in your life? What is the thing that you orient yourself towards, that you are striving after, that you hold as being the most worthy thing? What is it you worship? Because, the prophet Malachi told us this, after giving us that vision of the day of the Lord that is full of fire. He said this, "But for you who fear my name," fear the name of the Lord, "for you who fear my name, there shall arise a sun of justice with healing in his rays." Fear of the Lord. That's what makes the difference. But what is that? It has nothing to do with being terrified of God. It has nothing to do with feeling anxious about God. In Hebrew, fear of the Lord is Yirat Adonai, which means to stand in awe and reverence before the greatness of God. And this posture that we have in humble worship before God, it opens us up to receive his love and his healing in our life. The story of the Bible is this, that whatever it is that you worship is forming you. Whatever it is that you hold in highest esteem, whatever it is that is of highest value for you, it is forming you into its own likeness. And so if what is most important to me are things of this world, things that have shelf lives, then I'm not going to be ready for that day of the Lord. But when in humility I stand before the greatness of God in worship, this opens me up to receive his healing in all of those places that so often we're trying to find in other things. This humble worship of God, it opens me up to be restored in my dignity that might have been trampled on by another person or a situation. Worship of God, it opens me up to receive order in places of disorder in my life. This humble worship of God, it allows me to receive healing in places of regret or sorrow in my life. So the question is, what is it that we worship? Friends, every Sunday we come here and we do some strange things. We genuflect. We kneel, we bow. Things that I don't suppose you're doing any other time this week. And each one of these external acts is meant to reflect an interior state of being before God. It's meant to reflect an interior place that I'm saying, Lord, you are great and you are holy. But I think it's important for us to ask ourselves, if there aren't other things that interiorly we are bowing before this week, are there other things that I am kneeling before? Do I have other things that I worship? And the goal is to reroute that attention, that worship back to the Lord, that he and he alone can have our heart. So how do we grow in becoming more worshipful of God? What ought we to do? I think the first step is to grow in wonder before the greatness of God. To grow in wonder before his greatness. Maybe this week you had that experience when on a couple of those nights the aurora borealis was up in the sky and you looked up. And if for a moment you were struck by the greatness of the one who created such a place. Or maybe in quiet prayer, you have been struck by the mystery of your own life, the greatness that you have been given this gift. You know, in our gospel today, the apostles are looking at the temple in Jerusalem and how beautiful it is. And they're mesmerized, they're awestruck by it. And Jesus tells them, hey, yeah, it's pretty great. And it's good as long as that awe is getting you to think about the God who made it possible. That thing has a shelf life. It has an expiration date. And if we think about all of the things that over the course of the week captivate us, that hold our attention, that have us awestruck, do those have shelf lives? My job, my possessions, my body, my hobbies. See, the goal is to reroute all of that attention, not recognizing these things as good things, but recognizing the greatest thing, which is God. The sense of wonder which allows us to recover the greatness of God that then in humility we come here to worship before. You know, when I was growing up, I spent all of my money, and I mean literally all of my money. It's one of those things where my mom lovingly should have told me no, but I spent all of my money on baseball, football, and basketball cards. And every month, I would get a magazine in the mail called Beckett, and it would have all of the values of those cards in it, and every month I would pour through it to see how I was doing, how my cards were performing, how much money they were worth. And I would look at these cards, and I would hold them up, and I would trade them with friends. They had me caught. But for the greater part of the last 15 to 20 years, they have been in a box underneath a bed at my parents' house. Well, last Christmas when I was home, I pulled the box out, and I was going through it with my oldest nephew, Albert, who was 10. And we were sorting through them, and we were looking up the prices on the internet to see what these things were worth. And holy smokes, LeBron James rookie card, cha-ching. Tom Brady rookie card, cha-ching. I was feeling pretty rich. And Albert was like, hey, can you sell all of these and take all of us to Disney World? And I said, absolutely not. But what was happening in that moment? I was being reminded of the value of something that I had shoved underneath a bed. And being reawakened to the value of this thing made me realize how great it is that, oh my gosh, I have this thing. Well, fellow Christians, what is it that you already have? What is it that you and I have already inherited? The greatest story ever told. That God is love. And that this love drove him to come to earth to walk alongside us in the person of Jesus. And that this is an event historical. It's not just an idea, but that it truly happened. But that this love of God led him to die for us while we were yet still sinners. And yet death holds nothing over him, that he rose from the dead. And having risen from the dead, he comes and he breathed his spirit, the same spirit that rose him from the dead, into you and I, so that we might no longer live under the fear of sin or death, but might know the light of life. That's our story. And when we are reawakened to the power and its awe-inspiring effects in our life, what happens to us? We are moved to wonder. And we come to this place where we sing out glory to God in the highest, and holy, 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 and we genuflect and we bow and we kneel before the greatness and the goodness of God. And above all, before the great love that he has for us, so that we might place ourselves in a place where he can give us that love and we might receive it. So that when that day of the Lord comes, whether it is tomorrow or 20 years from now or 1,000 years from now, or if it's today, we might welcome it when it comes, knowing that the Lord is near.